Yeah, I tried to get into guns because he was interested in it. So he actually bought me a Walther, what was it? Walther
PK380.
Yeah, because it was not. But I have small hands, so it was hard to find a gun that whatever. It was hard.
There it is. There's the balls. There's the balls.
Makes
it was
Tina
hard.
feel huge.
It was hard to find a gun that I could hold and use that wasn't difficult. Like whenever I was active duty, that was always a tough thing for me in firing, because in order for me to properly shoot, I have to shift my hand forward and backwards constantly to hold it correctly. But anyway, so I tried to get into firearms and stuff because he was really into it. And then, but my mom committed suicide in 2011, and she used a gun. And so ever since, and he had just bought me that gun, like literally, I think for my birthday or for Christmas that year. And then she, passed away that New Year's Eve.
I could see how that would.
It completely changed. Yeah, it completely changed my perspective. Like I still sometimes hear gunshots because my brain makes up, because I wasn't there. So my brain makes up, scenarios in my head, I think sometimes in my sleep. So it really ruined that whole thing for me. So I just don't have any interest in them. I don't want anything to do with them. It makes me more nervous than no matter how safe he is with them. And I understand how he's trained our kids and everything. It's just like a thing for me. So it's, it kind of ruined it for me trying to get into stuff like that. So
yeah, hearing gunshots for me is if I'm doing it, or if I know, like I know the person shooting the gun, I feel okay. But like I can tell the difference between fireworks and a gunshot just by hearing it down the street. My body reacts differently.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's burning body. That's the one that does it for me, and I don't think I'll ever get over that one.
Yeah, I've burnt my face off before, so I can relate.
Fireworks.
I didn't eat. You can ask Ashley. I didn't eat barbecue for almost a year after. We had a situation. So where I'm at now, we have 17,000 acres that are federally owned, but it's all natural gas pipelines and all of those things, right? And we actually had a guy static electricity while I was working on one of the high pressure lines, and it erupted, and it was shooting about 1,000-foot flames off of that line because it was one of those little above ground, looked like propane tank. And I had actually just got done being a game warden, so I knew where all these lines and all that stuff was. And they called me and they're like, "Hey, you got to go out here. You're the only one that knows where the fuck it's at." Well, and we're trying to get accountability of, hey, who's out here? Is everybody okay? Like, you know how it is, Lenny. Like, we got to figure out.
Oh yeah.
What are we looking for here? Like, what is our next steps? And for like 3 hours, it was like, nah, we got everybody. We're good. And then I'm like, there is this stench here. There is somebody here. Let's go through it again. And finally, a wife called and was like, I can't get a hold of my husband. So then that's when the search began, and we're doing the search, and then I hear a crunch, and I'm like, I found him, and then we just go from there. But it was just that stench, that you can't get over. And that's what does it for me, because like even Ashley, like everybody's like, hey, neighbors are like, hey, we're gonna do a barbecue. I'm like, nah, you can go fuck yourself. Like I'm not doing this.
Reminds you of that situation.
Well, we had, whenever I went to the schoolhouse, because that wasn't too long after, whenever I went to go be an instructor, one of the training areas that we had for our close quarter stuff, we had all different types of smells. We had sewage, we had decay, and all kinds of crazy shit. I think we had like 30 different smells, and one of them was burning body. And I was like, and I've never been, apprised to any other smell, like in real life.
Yeah.
And then they played that one, and I'm like, I can't do this. They turn it off, and I was like, never again. Well, they decided to play a fucking prank on me one day and do that one. I walked straight off, and I went back to the office. I was like, y'all go fuck yourselves. Like, I can't do this.
That's some like PTSD, bro.
Yeah, because that was like super realistic.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, just the fact that you engaged in that scene like that, and then all that other shit's going on, like causing that reaction from you beyond that. I mean, that's classic fucking PTSD shit, dude.
Well, and that's where I feel for Ash. I get it. It's one of those things, like, I get what she's going through when it comes to, and that's why, I don't constantly try, like, because while y'all were gone, Rebel was talking about me being a firearms instructor, which I could do, but being a firearms instructor, I'd want a shit ton more guns around the house. But, on the flip side of that, I know how Ashley feels about them.
Yeah.
So I get it.
So I don't do, I'm not a Sammy or anything. I'm a line coach generally. So when we do M4, M500, or like pistol shoots, anywhere between the M11 Berettas and just like a Colt. Basically, it's like, you guys know line coach is like the guys walking the line, making sure everybody's safe and all that kind of shit.
Ours wear sweet ass hats.
Yeah. We have like a sweatshirt we put on, just so people know who we are to identify, and like I can disarm somebody quickly if I need to. But like, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, bro. That's fucking nuts. Back in I want to say, was it 2000? Alaska Airlines had an aircraft. It was an MD-80 aircraft that lost control of its vertical or its horizontal stabilizer. So the horizontal stabilizer that basically directs the aircraft nose up, nose down. So the jack screw, we call it the Jesus nut because I used to work on that plane. The Jesus nut came off and it went up the jack screw, and it got stuck in a position that inverted the aircraft, and it went down full of people into the coast right off of the base I was at. And all of us young guys, I'm like, I don't know, was it 2000, maybe 99, somewhere in there. I don't remember the exact year, but
damn, you're old.
They had us out on the beach. So the beach was shut down because the sharks were out a lot more because there was people in the water.
There's fresh food.
And we were out there for days on end picking up shit. Most what I saw was like clothes, condiments, the only like little bits of people were like pieces of finger and shit like that, just pieces. And that kind of shit still, like, when you, I still go back and I put myself on that beach and I'm just like, I think about, I'm like, there was like over 100 people in the water that are all dead now because of that. And they're washing up on shore, and all of their personal effects in their lives that they brought with them are washing up on the shore. It fucking fucks with me still, man, a little bit. They told us to go down there, like, oh, you guys are on beach watch. Make sure nobody goes there and go, you tell these people where you find stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. And you get down there and it's like it's just litter, dude. The whole beach was just litter.
You definitely have to have a different mindset. Like, other guys I've worked with for a long time, taking law enforcement, the people I've met and stuff, you got to see. I've seen more than enough shit that I'd like to deal with, but you have to, like, in most incidents that happen that are traumatic, it's almost like we use comedy as like a coping mechanism. Like, most of these incidents I've dealt with, it's like weird that people from the outside looking in would think we're freaking nuts or would think we're inhuman because we're cracking these jokes or something like that. But I think it boils down to just a basic coping mechanism, because if not, it would eat us alive. Because if you didn't find some sort of comedic release in some of the stuff you've seen, you wouldn't be able to make it.
That incident that I worked or whatever, like, we get done and we're just hanging around the ambulance, waiting to be released, and we're sitting there like cracking jokes, doing all the things or whatever, and then you have our leadership, higher leadership than within our unit, walking by, and they're looking at us and they're like, y'all are insensitive, y'all need to pay respects. And me being the asshole that I am, I straight turn around and be like, you didn't see this body, you didn't step on this body, so who are you to tell me what I can and can't do on how to cope with what I just went through?
I don't think people understand, like, military fucking humor and is different because of that kind of shit, man.
Yeah, it's I think it's important.
Like when you get shot at, that fucking changes you.
Yeah.
You know, you're different after that.
Honestly, not even being shot at.
Well, just anything that in the military that people go through and all their different, anything that would traumatize an otherwise normal person. Like, like Lenny's saying, that the way you deal with that is through, like, you got to make a joke about it. And people, like you said, from the outside hear it. And they're like, y'all are fucked up. I'm like, nah, you just don't understand you just don't understand, you know? That's why military humor is fucked up half the time.
You have to be very, very, very good at compartmentalization.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have to.
Yeah.
And if you can't compartmentalize, like, you know, like Lenny said, it will eat you alive.
Yeah.
You know, and go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, it's just crazy from like things I dealt with at the beginning, because obviously I see the same shit a lot. So like my first dead body call, when at my first office we didn't have a lot of people on. It's in the middle of the summer. Somebody called and said, it was an EMS call. Somebody called and said the grandfather passed out in the public bathroom in the town park. And I was thinking, oh god, this guy's passed out. I get there before EMS and I'll help him. So I get there, I'm thinking this guy's passed out. So I get there, he's like on the toilet or whatever, and he's unresponsive. I'm like trying to pull him off the toilet, trying to do CPR. I'm trying to help him, and he was literally, I know he'd been dead for like 30 minutes, but the call came out and he'd passed out, and me not knowing anything at the time. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give him CPR. So I'm giving CPR to this cold old man that's been dead for 30 minutes. There's no possibility that he ever survive. And I'm like working on EMS. It was a busy day, so EMS took like 25 minutes to get there. So I'm like dead in the middle of July in a public bathroom with no AC. There's kids coming in the bathroom and shit. Like, oh, can we use the bathroom? I'm like, no, get out of here. But after that incident, like a dead body at that time was like nuts to me. Like I had to go home and like change my uniform. I was like, oh my god, I compared a dead body to like some sort of like illness. Like, oh, I got dead body on me. I need to go home and change. But there's nothing dirty about dead body. Just dead. Like he wasn't.
Yeah. He
didn't have any illness that I was going to catch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but now it's like I see a dead body. It's like a normal day. It's like, oh yeah, it's a dead guy. Like, this is has to be a dead person, but it's really weird. I had a kind of a what do you call it? I can't even think. What's like the when you talk about like aliens and shit? What's that like?
Conspiracy theory?
Conspiracy?
No, like a moment. I had like a paranormal,
Epiphany.
I guess. Moment.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I was working one weekend,
like a vision or something.
Yeah. Like it was like a month ago, and it was like really. It was a really calm night, a really oddly calm weekend night, and I was like riding around like I usually do, just ride around, just looking at houses and stuff in the middle of the night, just chilling, jamming, listening to music, and like looked to the side of the road in the ditch, and I just like had this like vision. I just like think of myself, I'm like, I visualize work boots, and I feel like I'm gonna find a dead body sticking out of the ditch. 2 hours later, we found a homeless guy wearing work boots dead on the side of the road. I got
deja vu.
It was weird though. No, I thought about it beforehand. It wasn't like
it was like a premonition. It was a premonition. I think Rebel said
premonition.
Yeah, premonition.
So it was weird because like
crazy.
we get there, and like the two newer officers are like, I think he's hurt. I'm like, no, he's dead. And
the newer generation would call
I
that.
started like freaking out. Like I legitimately started having like a panic attack. I was like, I'm freaking out. Like this is something I just thought about like 2 hours ago. I saw this. He's wearing the same work boots that I saw. Like this is nuts. Just weird. But like dead bodies now, going back to the other thing, dead bodies nowadays, it's like a normal day, really. When thinking of my first body, it was so traumatizing at the time. Like I was the only one there in the middle of the park in the middle of the summer. I was so busy. And I'm dealing with this dead guy, but
desensitization, man. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, the freaking overdone guy, that was my first one.
Right.
You know, and I've seen multiple since then. You know, but like, so did you learn something from your CPR guy though? Like, did you learn I'm probably not going to go as quick as possible now?
I actually ruined. No, because when I was in the Marine Corps, I think I've talked to Skip about this before. I got when I was in my first deployment, I went to Advanced Combat Lifesaver course. So I carried
that course is so much fun.
I know. I carried the the combat lifesaver pack. So I've always been like medically, like before I got in the Marine Corps, I actually thought about being a paramedic. Medicine's always been something of interest to me. So I've always on like shooting calls and stuff like that, I'm always the first to triage people and give aid. But like on that call, I actually messed up. So I'm sure you guys know when you do CPR, you're not supposed to stop CPR unless somebody comes to assist you or there's signs of life or they're coming back. But at that time, I stopped like 15 minutes in. One, I was gassed. Two, I started thinking to myself, this guy's been here 30 minutes. He's not going to survive. And I shouldn't even have started CPR at the time. But that was my first call that I thought about, like taking a thought before I start CPR, I guess you'd say. And especially when doing it for that long is fucking tiring. But yeah, I definitely think about EMS being there before I get there most of the time. Unless it's a shooting, something I can actually visualize and tell. Yeah. With CPR, that's something I would.
I mean, is y'all's department policy like if you're, first on scene, you have to render aid until somebody else is there? Yeah. So, doing that.
We only carry trauma kits. We only carry CPR masks, chest seals, pressure bandages, stuff like that. We don't carry anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it just, okay, I got somebody unresponsive or whatever. You do your ABCs.
Right.
Or whatever, and if they don't pass that, you got to start CPR, and then until somebody relieves you.
Yeah, and luckily at the office I work for now, we have like four firehouses pretty close, so they're pretty fast.
That's good. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think a lot of people that have actually done CPR understand that is rough.
Yeah, if you're doing it right, you get fucking gassed.
But the thing about it is you're not doing it right if you don't break the ribs.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and they teach you that, I mean, they literally teach you that when you're going through a CPR course that you're not doing it right unless you crack a rib or break one.
Yeah.
The chances are very high if you're doing it right.
Mentally doing CPR on somebody is tough.
Yeah. Like that that's another aspect that fucked me up for a while because my thought process was like on that call that I got there and this guy passed out and I didn't save him was my thought at the time.
I didn't do it right.
Dead for 30. Exactly. I thought like I fucked up. I could have saved this guy. I didn't save him, but he had been dead too long. Nobody could have saved him. But like talking about like trauma aid and stuff on calls. Like speaking of this office I work for now, I've rarely ever have to do it because like I said, EMS is there pretty much instantly when we get there. But my last office, we didn't have any full-time medical providers. It was all volunteer. So it took them a good amount of time to get there. So 90% of my shooting calls, our deputies when we were rendering aid, we were doing everything. So I had a lot of training experience from my last office, luckily.
Yeah. You guys were doing field trauma, like combat medic trauma almost.
Oh yeah. We go through tourniquets and pressure bandages and shit all the time.
I got lucky and I had when I got shot, I had two service, veterans that were there. They knew exactly what to do, calm me down, not pack the wound, but, put pressure on it.
Right.
I like the
hemostatic gauze too, but
medical training.
Are expensive.
As combat arms, we had to go through a lot of medical training.
Yeah, shit's interesting. I love that.
I probably did like 4 or 5 different types of training, all the way up to Moscow. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. We could do everything all the way up to even like needle chest decompressions. We could do IVs. Right. We could do everything as not even a medic, but just being combat arms. Luckily, we had good medics. Like my entire 10 years in the Army, I always had really good medics. Amazing medics.
Oh yeah, the military, corpsmen and shit. That was probably the most knowledgeable guys I've ever met in my life.
Here's a little tidbit.
Okay, there are 3 branches I would agree with you. There's one branch that I would not agree with you with.
Air Force?
Facts.
I've never.
Here's a little tidbit too. So my second deployment, we ended up getting like, I don't know, about quarter of the way into deployment, we get this new kid medic. His name was Buddy Stratton, as in his like grandfather or great grandfather was Stratton of Briggs and Stratton Motors.
Oh damn!
Yeah. His dad disowned him because he joined the military. Because he joined the army. Legit disowned the kid because he joined the military.
I would think he wouldn't.
Well, because they're all rich, got money and stuff like that. Well, he wanted to do something. He wanted. He was a good kid.
That's commendable, though.
Yeah, he was a good kid. Wanted to do something, and he loved being, the medical field.
His company that made him that money is willing to take contracts from the military, but not send his son in.
Right.
That's not right. That's contradictory.
Just a little tidbit. It was fun.
Like the medical aspect of it. I've always been really intrigued about medicine, but like people don't understand. Like DUIs are a big thing for me. I'm a big DUI guy. I love doing DUI patrols and like that. But people in Virginia, that is DUI laws are really different in a lot of different states. But so without trying to stretch out too much, but to go into detail because it's a lot of shit. But when you get a DUI and say somebody doesn't want to give a breath sample in the breath machine, they have an option to give blood to determine the alcohol content of your blood. So if they don't want to give blood, we have the option to get a search warrant for your blood. So the one thing we've running into recently is that so if we get a search warrant, I have, as law enforcement officer, the only person that can execute that search warrant. So our problem is the hospital staff is refusing to do search warrants. Now it's a problem because technically they're hindering my investigation, so that's a crime. But at the same time, they have to follow HIPAA rights, so they can't give aid to anybody or do medical treatment to anybody if they refuse. So we started talking about doing phlebotomy courses to do our own blood draws and shit. And I brought it up. I was like, I'll do it. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'll take some blood.
I actually saw a video about that, and the cop actually arrested the nurse.
Yeah, it actually comes up a lot. We don't do that. That's not a good thing. We work very closely with the hospital. That's not something you want to do.
Bridge you don't want to burn, man.
He actually arrested her, and then the hospital, like one of the main hospital guys for the hospital, actually hauled ass down there and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Right.
But
which by law, technically, he's not wrong, but at the same time, there's a letter of the law and there's a spirit of the law. Like, just because there's a law for it doesn't mean you have to fucking be the asshole to do it. And from now on, I'm sure that office is going to have a fucking problem with that, or the hospital's going to have a problem with that office because of that asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bridge burnt, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, with you going through Advanced Combat Lifesaver or whatever, that would be easier for you to get a certification like that because you've already been trained.
And the phlebotomy course to get your phlebotomy.
Exactly.
I think it's like a 3-hour online course. That's short.
Well, but I mean, they teach us that shit in Advanced Combat.
Yeah.
Give an IV.
We have a problem all the time. Nobody wants to do it. Once one person hears, I can refuse and they're not going to give my blood, then everybody hears about it. Their friend told them or whatever. So we've been having a lot of problems here lately. And I'm like, fuck it. Let's just take their blood ourselves.
So just to clear something up for all the gamers out here, tampons don't go in gunshot wounds. Right?
No.
They go up noses.
Okay.
No.
So, I mean, tampons are multi-use.
If you got nothing to put on it before you put pressure on it, sure, but I don't know.
If you have anal bleeding, tampons may help it.
I mean,
it's not uncommon.
I've only seen pads in the back of cop cars. I haven't seen tampons. Pads.
Yeah.
Tampons.
I have legit seen, on a patrol while I was deployed or whatever, they ran out of quick clot on a guy. And so what they did is they put the fucking tampon inside a wound and then put the bandage around it because they had no quick clot. And that actually saved the guy's life. They inside the wound.
Oh.
Because it did help absorb, and the more absorption that you can get out of a wound, the quicker that is actually going to clot, on its own, with the body's natural function. So they are multi-use.
So it's plausible.
It can be, yes. Okay. In every situation, no.
Yeah.
But on a fly, when you got to use what you got at some points. Now, am I saying that's going to be something that happens all the time? No. But you can make a tourniquet out of pretty much anything. You can make a splint out of pretty much anything. Yeah. You just have to be Semper Gumby. Yeah, that was a plug to the Marines. But
Semper Gumby.
But
we use that.
Everybody uses it. I'm pretty sure the Army uses it.
Always flexible.
Yeah. But yeah, you just have to be,
I got nipples. God. Can you milk me?
I literally saw that the same time.
So, that's a whole different
in today's
topic.
society, possibly.
Depends on what kind of medicine you're taking.
Yeah, facts. But it's crazy. So, Lenny, I do want to ask, because I do want to compare it to how the military does. In your department, how much training do y'all go through a year? Is there a required amount of training, or is it optional requirements? What is it?
You have in-service training. You have to complete, to keep your certification, you have to complete 40 hours for every 2 years of in-service training. That's not including just basic range qualification stuff. That's just your on-the-job training and stuff. So you have to get through certain classes or advancement training, stuff like that, to get hours to get towards your certification every year.
That's just to keep your post.
That's pretty much, that's just to keep your certification in the state. But like I had, unfortunately, when I transitioned to this office, I just expired, so I didn't have time to go through all my classes, so I had to do all of it online, and it was fucking brutal. It's like going to classes, because it's not really that bad. Because if you go to usually you'll get signed up to classes every couple months, or you go to training or something. So it fills the time by itself without even thinking about it. But if you have to do it all 40-hour stretch in a week of online classes, you fucking hate yourself. Your life is all that is for a week is you doing a fucking class online. It's fucking brutal.
And is it? Are there certain topics you have to do? Or is it just anything?
You have career development, which is just basic law enforcement. You have law. You have diversity. Something like that. I don't know if it's diversity. It's another D word. I can't remember. But yeah, there's law. There's there's four. There's law. There's career. Whatever I just said, I fucking lost my
career development.
Career development, and it's like something diverse. It's not diversity training. It's like something has something along cultural diversity is what it's called. You have to do 4 hours of cultural diversity, and there's one more. I can't really remember what it is. But yeah, it's
so there's an hour requirement per 4.
Right, so I can't just go to the range for fucking 40 hours and be good. No, you have to. It has to be specific trainings.
And this is probably a topic, because this is, the keyboard warrior thing that you see on, news media outlets and social media and all that shit. How often do y'all do use of force training in your department specifically?
In my department, really just comes with what's that training. Like here recently, we do 1 2-hour block a month of just random training. I haven't done use of force training since I did my last thing. There's not really required every year to do use of force. You really just got a refresher every 6 months, I think, where you go over the policies, use of force policies, which are paramount for making sure you don't fucking do anything wrong. But there's no continuum or anything. There used to be years ago, a use of force continuum about if this happens, do you meet it with this use of force? That's not a thing anymore, because that caused problems where officers were overthinking things and use of force or deadly force situations and stuff. So now it's just really just force on force stuff, to where they give officers. That's one good thing. They give officers the ability to determine on their own what level of force is required.
Well, because it comes down to the totality of circumstances.
Right.
Do you think that you guys more training would be beneficial? I mean, not for all, obviously, not for every officer, but some officers, and just to being it as a departmental like team, like, do you think more training is beneficial, or do you think that maybe at some point it kind of hinders actually doing things on the job?
I think it depends on the kind of training. You can do too much training on something that's gonna fuck up an office and make, like I said, make people overthink. But training is good as a whole. Yeah. But I think officers gotta make a educated decision on what training they're doing. Stop fucking filling officers' heads with this bullshit that's making their job harder.
Yeah. I kind of do when I do training on things. I mean, it's different topics, obviously, but it's more geared towards a lot of times like what's going on now, you know, right. And not to like make people overthink it, but more so to just make them think about it and think about it in different ways, like perspectives, I guess you could say, you know. Or policy, you know, policy changes. Hey, we got to do some training because this is a new policy. So let me teach you guys what this all means. Let me break it down for you because it's all written in freaking military lingo. And half the time, you know, it doesn't make a lick of sense. So you kind of have to break it down to where it's more absorbable, you know?
Right.
And why can't it be that way
from the beginning? I think there needs to be... It's hard because every state has their own
legalese, man.
Right. It's unfortunate because every state has their own. They can govern their state how they like, but I think because like medical wise, every state is under the same umbrella of certification and how they do things. Mm-hmm. It's standardized, but like law enforcement is not at all. It needs to be, I think,
standardized, like federally.
Yeah, but right, but it's also hard, like I said, because the laws are so different in every state. I don't know how that would work, but
I think every state
does something different.
They're all culturally different too. I mean, if you think about it, there's a few states that are kind of very similar. Like usually they're adjoining, you know, but I think that you have to. There's certain ways that you have to react, and certain ways you have to do business that kind of are accommodating to the local area, and not necessarily a one size fits all solution.
Yeah,
you know, you can't go into the Appalachians and like expect to do the same shit there that you do in like the city. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Oh yeah, I get that. I get that to an extent too. Yeah. Shit, the way that I talk to people is different.
Yeah.
On calls here compared to where I used to work. You got to relate to people. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get anywhere with anybody if you're just trying to act like a robot too.
Standoffish and just a dick.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I was thinking about on our break too. It's like I wouldn't say I've gotten some pushback, but because of my history with my family and stuff, I have a certain compassion when it comes with when I work with people that have history of drug use or stuff like that, or something like I tend to deal with those people differently, and I have had not problems in the past, but people say certain things in the past, like why do you do it like that, or why do you talk to, or why do you act like this way to this person? I think there needs to be a certain level of compassion everywhere for people in different situations, because a lot of times officers think that they got to treat everybody the same, and they're just this asshole all the time. But that's not how it works.
Yeah,
a lot of them see it just as they're committing a crime. They need to be arrested and thrown in jail. It's not really how it works. There's a rehabilitation aspect that comes with it too. But I'm not by any means saying that I'm not a hug a thug kind of guy. I'm just saying that there needs to be some sort of compassion that comes with law enforcement. It's not there from what I've seen.
Well,
there's a show on Netflix that I just was watching today. It was about Hug a Thug was the foundation the kid guy worked for.
Oh, this shit. That's funny.
There's a bunch of Los Angeles ex-gang members.
Yeah.
Fucking going through puberty.
But I mean, the thing about it, are you?
Me, I'm going through puberty. You didn't hear my voice crack?
Yeah, I heard you. What were you trying to say? Finish your thought, man.
Oh, it's a show about gang members, ex-gang members. Yeah, working at the Hug a Thug Foundation.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was a real thing. Shit.
No, it probably isn't. It's just for the show.
That's what they called it on the show.
Yeah,
Hug a Thug.
Hug a Thug. And like they pulled up some mugs. It says thugs are bad, hugs are good, and this is my mug.
I need that mug.
When I was a corrections officer, we used to use that term all the time. Hug a thug.
Yeah, it is a widely known in any sort of corrections, law enforcement. Like hug a thug is a thing.
We use the word coddling.
It's same thing.
Similar, right? That's kind of what you're meaning. Like coddling.
Yeah.
I think there's sympathy and empathy involved more so. Not hugging.
But I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like drugs are a problem, right? And no matter what they are, and if I arrest one person, is that going to get rid of the drug problem that's going on? No, it's not. So at the end of the day, de-escalation of a situation is the best thing, because that's going to avoid what is going on in social media. It's not going to make it to the news, but because you give somebody a disappointed dad talk about drugs, right? You might change that one person's life. So instead of arresting them, if you just give them that disappointed dad, you might have just changed their life by one conversation.
Right. Instead of fucking their life up.
Exactly.
By arresting them.
And that's in the news media and social media, they just make us out to be fucking straight dickhead robots, and we're just going to do what we have to do, no matter what other ethnic background that you have, no matter what crime that you committed. And that's not the case. I respond to a call. My whole entire point after I leave that call is to not have to do any paperwork afterwards. Unless I absolutely have to.
Right. Yeah, paperwork.
Am I wrong in that, Lenny?
A huge part of my job. Paperwork is never ending.
But I mean, if you can avoid it, you're going to avoid it
as much as possible. Oh yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
I appreciate both perspectives, like coming from. So we've kind of touched on it a little bit in the past, but so my dad is a habitual criminal, and it's due to drug addiction. So, being that it's happened so many times, we're talking like before I was even born is when his issues started, right? So it's been a long time. So obviously no one's talks have done him any good up to this point. But I appreciate the perspective of, understanding that people who are that way, just because they are habitual doesn't necessarily mean they want to be that way. So it doesn't matter how many times they fall into the same patterns or whatever it is, there's still a level of compassion. There's a lot of people that won't want to talk about it or whatever. And I didn't mention it before because we kind of got off on a lot of things, but I appreciate your perspective also into how you got into what you're doing, because I can relate to coming from a not so great childhood, and I feel like it changes. There's two ways you can go, right? When you come from a childhood like that, you either lead right into it and you go and you follow that path, or you find that you lean to the opposite. And I feel like that's the side that you and I both lean to from our childhoods, coming from
it's rare. It's rare to be somebody like us, honestly.
It is. It's very
personally, I started off leaning towards it.
Yeah.
As soon as I got
now you're here, Rebel.
Yeah.
Look at you. You got a beautiful
started at the bottom.
That's all I do now.
People they don't expect it when they talk to me, coming, I was raised by my grandparents because my parents couldn't take care of me, and my dad's been in and out of jail since before I was born, and my mom had mental issues and committed suicide when I was 24. So I feel like a lot of my success has been because I was allowed to grow up in a somewhat normal environment with my grandparents, but I was still exposed to, I still knew what was going on and everything and all the stuff, but we're definitely the exception, to that. And so it's nice to hear someone who can be like, even for my dad, like I'll never give up on my dad because I've already lost my mom, right? He's the only parent I have left, so no matter how many times he screws up, he's my dad. I have a half sister who won't have anything to do with him, and I'm the only other, kid he has. So as of right now,
you're the only one he has left.
I'm the only one he has left, yeah, because his father passed away. My grandfather passed away 2 years ago, and my grandmother, his mom, is incapacitated at this point. She's in, hospice care and whatnot. So, as of, at this very moment, he's awaiting parole. He's been approved for parole, and I've been, buying his commissary and supporting him for the last, 2 years, essentially hoping that this time is the time, right? Like this is the time. It's going to change. Right?
Hopefully he's getting too old.
Yeah.
Like my oldest brothers, that's another thing is like, it comes down to a lot goes into it, like mentally and physically, to want to go down the road to recovery. They have to want to. They have to recover for themselves too. Yeah, like my brother, not my oldest brother. I have 2 older brothers. I'm the baby, but my middle brother, which I always had high hopes for, he always did well, even though he was an addict. But in 2017, I moved him to Virginia from Kentucky, where I'm originally from. When he got out of jail, to try to start a new leaf, and he lived with me for 3 years, and he did good. He was doing good for a while. And then he has a problem with his relapsing issues. He has a problem with he has no coping mechanisms when like he wasn't able to see his kids and stuff. And when he goes down that path, he has no way to cope. So he always goes back to drugs. And since 2018, so he was good for 3 years. He was clean because he lived with me, and he's been in and out of jail ever since. Like when I lived there, I try to talk to him. I try to keep high hopes for him, but it's like he's 45, like, and every time he gets out, I'm like, oh, maybe this time I'll do better. But I've lost that because I gave him the best life he could have had, because I gave him a house, I gave him a job, everything. And one of the last times before I moved from my last office, I actually I helped one of my partners arrest him on a warrant he had for his arrest. He stole somebody's property, and I identified him in a surveillance photo, and I set him up to get arrested, and he actually ran from us. So that was pretty rough.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to him a while after that to disrespect me in that aspect, where I was nice enough to help him out and let him know, like, hey, you got a warrant for your arrest. We're going to be cool about it because I'm in the position I'm in. I can facilitate you getting to jail in a nicer way, and you can have your dinner and stuff. My partner was nice enough to let him eat and get a shower and stuff before we went to jail, and he decided he was going to try to climb through the window while he was taking a shower, and we had to chase him down.
Yeah.
It took me a while after that to talk to him again, but I started talking to him again recently, but he just got back out of jail. From what I hear, he's still doing the same shit, so.
That's me. I'm like, at what point do you not?
Yeah.
Like,
I get it from my mom, though. My mom's the same way. She's a huge heart. But and that same aspect, I'm sorry, Tino, but in the same aspect, my mom has kind of facilitated the way my brothers act.
Yeah.
They've always been coddled, like, coddled and enabled. Like, every time they've ever done wrong, she's always been there to give them more money or help them out, or, oh, he wasn't doing it. He's a good boy. He didn't mean it, or he'll do better next time. But there's never a next time.
No accountability. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of drug addicts need somebody in their life that will hold them accountable for their actions, Yeah.
And with her dad, because we've had the conversation, because she's like, at what point, and you're talking about, you with your brother, you let him come to you invited him into your home, got him a job. Like, we've never had that with her dad. I mean, we kind of did for a little bit, but it wasn't like a permanent thing,
But when the difference was when he came to us, he was already still doing, his choice is opioids. That's what he gets addicted to.
So, now, like, we're the only thing he has left, and I've got him a job, and the guy that owns the job is a cop.
Yeah, that's
so, and I think this is the longest he's ever been in jail consecutively, so he's been cleanest the longest, I feel.
That's work. That's how my brother was. He was clean. So he had all the right
tools.
Tools when he got out. So he was good while he lived with me. Then his downfall was once he moved out with this girl, they broke up, and it was down from there. Then he had this shit with his.
And see, with my dad, it was a similar situation. He was clean for like 7 years. Like he got remarried. He was, he lived down the street actually from my in-laws, coincidentally, and that was like the longest period of time I remember because I was an adult, or I was an older into young adult in this period where he had been clean, he was stable, he had a job, and then he had an accident at work. And a crane fell on his back, and he went to the doctors. And my grandmother, his mom, tried to tell them, do not prescribe him opioids. He has a history of being of addiction to opioids, and they prescribed him to him. And within a year, he was addicted again. And so he was back in and out of rehabs and divorced and all the things, and but now he's over the phone and over. He met Piper. That's my oldest, our oldest. He found out about her when I was probably 6 or 7 months pregnant. And then he met her for a little bit of time whenever she was very young. And JC, our youngest, was a baby, like stroller sized. And then he disappeared again. We went to Japan, and then we came back, and I only found him because my grandfather died. And coincidentally, I was looking for my dad. My dad was looking for me. For this, for different reasons. He didn't even know his dad had passed away because he was in jail. But over the last 2 years of us being here is the most consistent. He's like been in contact, and he's formed a connection with my girls. And so I keep hoping that I'm like, this has got to be it, right? Like this has got to be like, this is his last shot, and he's got to know that, so I'm hoping, so he's applied for an interstate compact to come stay with us because he's in jail in Texas and we're in Louisiana, and we've opened our door to him, and I think I'm hoping that the difference is that this is going to be the first time he's come to us clean. And I'm hoping that after the last couple of years, and, he says this all the time, Ashley, thanks for, thank you. And I know deep down in his heart, and I'm his firstborn, and not that he doesn't love my sister, but he was never as close to my sister as he was with me. And he's like, I just hope that this is like the straw, and he says that a lot of the times too. He's like, Ashley, I'm too old for this shit. Because my dad is one of those, he's like, I'll tell you. You ask me, he's the most honest criminal you've ever met. He's like, if you I'll tell you I did it. And he's like, if I'm caught, I'm
for
caught.
For the most part, when it's drug related, they just doing it for the drugs. They're not trying to get away.
No, he's not. And to be honest, all of his criminal activity was for money, so he could live on the streets. He's never been violent. He's never hurt he would never hurt anyone. He's not a violent criminal. He's just he stole to live because he was on the streets, and he's been addicted to drugs, and he couples that with alcohol. And
so if he's trying to come live with you, like, I don't know how it is where you live, but more than likely he's a felon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Only because they've upgraded all of his misdemeanors. Yeah.
So if that's going to work best, I'm sure you already do because you have kids. And most aspects of pro officers and stuff would try to be like, oh, he can't be around guns and stuff. That's bullshit. Guns can be in the area. Like, you have a safe. Like, my brother lived with me. As long as my guns stay in my safe, there's no such thing as constructive possession. You can't just your parole officer can't just say, "Oh, he can find your key," and then somehow get to your guns, and then he has the ability to have possession of a firearm. No, that's not how it is. As long as you have him in a safe and you have the key locked, he should be good to stay with you guys. Gotta just keep an eye on him.
And we bought a safe and all that, and we even asked about medications because I've got a lot of health issues going on right now. I'm having surgery on the 28th, and he could be a month within coming to stay with us. And so occasionally I have, opioids prescribed to me for post-ops and things like that. And so we were like, what do we need to do with those even? Do we lock them up? And they were like, no, you're good. As long as they're not like in his room or, and it's prescribed to you and things like that, So we've been asking all those questions and everything so that he can come and stay with us. But we're just like, it's hard to escape that stigma.
Because everybody thought it was like off the wall for a felon. Because not many of the guys I worked with had a family like me, so to the thought that like my felon brother was going to come live with me in my house with all my guns. They're like, oh, there's no way. But there's a way. It's just there's this.
Well, and with our kids too. We've got a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old, and you're going to bring a felon in your house. Well, it's a different kind of thing. You have to understand their history and things like that. And he's not a violent person. When my dad is sober, he is the most incredible dad on the planet.
Yeah, that's like my brother's the same way. My other brother, he's got hardcore schizophrenia and he's been a drug addict forever. I don't trust him around anybody, but he's a decent guy. But my other brother has always provided for his sons when he could, when he wasn't on drugs. But he was always a good person. I remember I had so many good memories of him when I was a kid. But and he'd go into drugs and be a different person. Like now,
what I'm hoping is because every time he was arrested, he was in a comfortable area. He's never been here.
He had connections and he could fall back into old habits. And
he doesn't have that here. He has family. He's got a job, and so that's what we're hoping. Like we're doing the same thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And now granted he's much older. That's what we're hoping.
He keeps telling me he's like Ashley, the people I'm in jail with now, he's like, they're not the same as the people that I was in jail with before. He's like, these younger guys are a completely different breed.
This time he's coming sober, and he's got the only person left in his life that he cares to disappoint right there by his side the entire time.
I would just say
that's what I'm hoping.
The only thing that I failed at is the super obviously supervision you haven't set up for success, and you doesn't have any connections. When I failed was I thought there was enough time had passed where he'd been sober and been doing good that I was like, okay, I can loosen the reins a little bit and let him go do his own thing.
There's never enough time.
That's what the problem was. I should have kept on him and it would have been fine. But
they say an addict is always an addict.
Once an addict, always an addict.
No, it
depending on the circumstance. It is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, and Ashley works from home, so
I'm just hoping really for my kids. Yeah. I'm like, if I wasn't enough, and I say that in the sense that I know my dad loves me, right? But if I wasn't enough for him, knowing how much he loves me, if I wasn't enough, I'm hoping that this relationship that he's built with his grandkids is. That's what I'm kind of clinging to.
That might be what he needs. Yeah, like everybody needs something. Like every one of my siblings is different. My sister, what helped her was jail. Like I said, everybody says like, oh, you got to be, oh, they need rehab. Not everybody needs rehab. Everybody has their own sort of niche thing that's going to change them. My sister has been clean for 6 years. She lost her kids. Both my mom and my dad had custody of her kids forever, as long as I've known her. But now, 4 years ago, she got her kids back because she went to jail for so long. She was done with it. But my brothers have both been through rehab. One of them rehab fixed them and jail fixed them. The other one, he hasn't figured it out. But
my dad's been to rehab like 6 times, I think. I mean, he's literally found ways to hide his pills in the bottom of his shampoo bottles. Like, rehab doesn't do shit for him. Like,
I think there's a point too. I mean, a lot of people see it on what is that show, like Intervention? You guys seen that before?
Yeah.
Where like there's a point in time where families just are done. You know. Like I always thought to that. Like I could try to put myself in that situation and understand it, because I won't know what you guys deal with or have gone through, but I'm trying to put myself in like your situation and understand, like, is there at some point where you would just go, you know what, this is it, this is the final straw, like I can't do anything more for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would that be something that like you would think about, or you do think about, I guess?
So
that's
I do. Yeah,
I already went through that. I did that.
Yeah.
I do. Cut all time. I gave him a chance. I gave him 2 chances actually. The first time he was arrested for child support. He wasn't on drugs yet, and I was like, okay, I understand. You made me look stupid. That guys in my office had to go arrest you, even though you're my brother and they know who you are, and made me look dumb. But I'll give you another chance. And the other chance was when he was on drugs, and me and my other partner chased him down, and that was it. So I've had like no contact with him in years since then.
If my family member ran from me, I probably would have been the same.
Yeah, that was
in my
eyes. That was the most disrespectful thing he could have done.
And I feel talking about like what you're talking about, Skip. The reason why it's so hard for me to do that with my dad is because, I mentioned my mom earlier. My mom had a different flavor of issues. She was mentally unstable, and she had gone through a divorce just, after 15 years with this, my stepdad or whatever, right before she died and all that stuff. And I feel like I quit on her, not as an addict or a criminal, right? But I quit on her as mentally unstable. The last fight we had was Christmas Day. She was just being really petty about how I'll never forget it, and it's kind of abbreviated version, but all of her kids were under. I have an older half brother and a younger half sister with my mom. And the last Christmas we were all together, she was being really petty about the fact that my stepdad had not gotten her anything for Christmas, even though they were recently divorced. And my sister was like 11 or 12, and me and my brother were, older. I was already married, and he was married, and all the things. And, we were both really like, come on. Like, we were kind of like, put your big girl panties on. You have a kid here who is just trying to enjoy Christmas. And it was her real dad, her biological dad and everything and all that stuff. And we really kind of laid into her that day, and she retreated into her room and took her, she took pills too, but she didn't take them as like an addict. She took them as like a regular doctor was prescribing her things that she really should have been seeing a psychiatrist for, right? So she would take like anxiety medicines and things like that, and then she didn't even drink. My mom wasn't a drinker, but she went and holed herself up in her room, and we all got mad and we left. And that was the last time any of us saw her alive, because she, committed suicide within a week. And so there's a lot of guilt there as to like feeling like we kind of gave up on her too soon and got frustrated with her. And so I think I have a lot of internal fear about that with my dad, for a different reason, but a same concept, the same, like, I can't quit on him because I feel like I quit on my mom and look what happened. And if I quit on him, what's going to happen? And I'm going to get a call one day and he's going to already be gone and there's nothing I can do about it, so.
Right. But then you got to think about if you give him all the possible tools that he could use for success and then he still fails, you'd rather just the stress just to keep destroying you over time and just let it go. Just at some point, if that happens, you can't really let that beat you. I think about it all the time, and it's waiting for the call from my brother or somebody to call that my brother's dead, honestly. But it's bad to say, but I've kind of come to terms with it.
Well, and that's where I think, like, like that's her dad. That cannot be taken away from a person,
Just like your brothers and your sister,
Yeah, like that, family cannot be taken away from you like that. But, the way that I look at it is like the day that he shows up at my house, him and I are going to have this man-to-man conversation, because at the end of the day, for me, because he's not my dad, is I have to protect my family. I have to keep my family together. And, we're opening up our home and all of the things. And, there has to be a line. And I'm hoping that, a conversation like that would help solidify, on whether or not he is going to keep on the path that he's been on forever or turn over a new leaf.
I think about that too. If, my father-in-law has to come here, it won't be, it's a health issue really, but I think there's that, maybe it kind of applies, like he's the dad, right? So there's that level of respect with that, but at the same time, like, that's your household, you know what I mean? So things are going to go the way that you determine they go between the both of you, because it's your house, but I think you guys just still have that like level of respect that you have for your elders, for your parents, you know what I mean? Regardless of what they've done in their past, like that's who they are,
Yeah.
But I think that's important to establish too, though, is that's your home, and, to be in your home, what you say is the way,
Yeah. I mean, we've never held the kids from him. Like a lot of people are like, we'll have a conversation about it. We're like, you let your children talk to somebody that's in prison? Well, yeah, that's their grandfather.
Yeah.
And he's
You
not.
know-
It's not like he's not like Jeffrey Dahmer. Like,
Yeah, I
mean,
went
Yeah,
when I
no.
was
Nobody's saying that.
when I was in 7th
Right.
grade. I was going to state prison visiting my brother. That's
Yeah.
some people
I'm-
are just out of the ordinary. It's not something.
I met my
Yeah.
father-in-law through a fucking glass on a phone.
Funny story. The first
Yeah.
time Tuna ever met my dad in person was when he took me to see him because he was in jail, and that was the
Yeah.
first time they ever met each other. So like, this has been our
Mhm.
entire like.
It's all relatives. People just try to push their own ideologies and shit on each other.
Yeah.
What's the norm? Everybody has their own norm. That's all
Everybody's
it is.
different, man. Dynamics.
There is
are
no norm.
dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like
What is
we
normal?
talked about this a little bit, but I don't. Most states have that. I think Virginia is like a big thing we haven't really talked about, but like we go through. There's a specialized training called crisis intervention training. We can go through. It's a 2-week class for
Mhm.
like for seeing mental health people that are in mental health crisis or something like that. They're on the brink of suicide or could possibly cause damage to other people. So we go to this training to figure out how to speak with people like that, try to maybe
Yeah.
attempt to get them out of crisis or show them where to go if they are in crisis, or if they are somebody that wants to hurt somebody because they're in crisis, something like that. We have tools. People always say like, "Oh, we need a social worker to go into call." They don't do
Yeah.
that. It's never going to happen. Social
Mhm.
workers are not equipped
There are-
to deal with the people.
There
that do
are
that.
some places that have that though. They have crisis.
Yeah, I know. I
intervention
think there should be specialized
officers.
teams, but for Virginia, because of the funding, we have specialized officers. And like, if people don't know, like in chat, the National Suicide Hotline number is 988. Just think about that. Suicide's a big part of my life.
Yeah. Same.
I dealt with suicide, suicidal call not too long ago in 2019 of a 16-year-old girl that killed herself, and that's probably the I bet.
You're good, brother.
You're good, bro. That's one of the hardest things you probably ever had to deal with. 100%.
I couldn't imagine at all, especially when it comes to a kid.
Yeah, it hits home too, because in my job and stuff, I dealt with a lot of stuff. Had a issue not long before that where I had to seek counsel and stuff like that, which is always good. You always got to be. I've never had a problem talking to people, but
Yeah.
that call definitely changed my outlook on suicide for a long time, because I was kind of, for lack of a better term, stupid to the thought that I always thought suicide was like an easy way out and people were like selfish and stuff. But since I went through that and I've seen multiple people go through that, this incidents I have a new light to think of suicide as anything but selfish.
Yeah.
But the call that I dealt with her, it's definitely changed my life, and now I think about people and will stick with me forever.
That's something that's
I was the first one there, and
yeah.
it's pretty rough.
I think any law enforcement, anybody that's in law enforcement, they have there's the one call that will always stick with them.
Yeah,
1000%.
it was
You
crazy.
know?
It also like a lot of it had to do with, I think it was I can't remember, it was during COVID or just after, one of the two. She had think her it was a big it really it makes me think about kids nowadays and how attached they are to their phones. So what happened was she got in trouble with school for something, and her parents had kicked her off the softball team, and they'd taken her phone. And parents of our generation don't really understand that like these phones for these kids is their lifeline. Like during that COVID time, they couldn't see their friends and stuff. So the only way they had to talk to the outside world was through their cell phone, and they took her only source of communication away from her. And she told her sister to stay inside, and she went outside and shot herself in the side of the head. When I got there, she's still at the death rattle. I was in there within a minute. She was still technically alive, but she died minutes after I got there.
Damn. I don't think that was one of the biggest things that going through that whole COVID was like with friends
really?
coming over and stuff. I'm like, these kids need each other. Like they need human contact. I can give a fuck about COVID. Like if the parents, like we had my friends, my daughter's friends over, we talked to the parents, and I think of these, they're my own kids, and you know, too, I've known them for so long. It's like we talked to the parents and everybody's good, and it was like, you know, they're going through a really hard time. Like we're going through a hard time, you know, they must be going through a really hard time, and they need human contact. They need to be around each other. So like, you know what? You take the chance. But on the other side of that too is like the whole with the, like, you know, suicide awareness and prevention and stuff like that's, I mean, you know, you guys know it's 22, 23 vets a day that take their life, you know, and that's just the vet side. I mean, there's so many Americans and people around the world that do that too. And I think a lot of that is, you know, people don't understand like what some of the signs are for that kind of thing. And I'm not putting any pressure on anybody, because if someone's going to do something, they're going to do it regardless of what you do or say to them. But if you have an opportunity to recognize something and step in and provide a resource, or even just tell me what's on your mind today type of conversation, you know. And unfortunately, Lenny, like you deal with the backside of that, where the bad things have happened, you know, in some cases. And, you know, I deal with that on my job. It's not a daily thing, but like, I've dealt with it many, many times where, you know, I have to take someone to mental health or sit down and talk with somebody and find out honestly and truthfully. Like, I have to ask them straight up, point blank, are you going to kill yourself or hurt somebody else? Like straight up, point blank to their face. There's no other way you can do that. It has to be said, unfortunately. You can't beat around the bush. You have to say it direct, and it has to be exactly that, you know. Do you have plans? And that's, people don't know that. Like, you have to ask that. And then take action.
The funding isn't there either. It needs to be there. As much as I see it now, and how much my job encapsulates mental health, not just helping people that want to hurt themselves. Like, crime at the deep root is caused by, for the majority, is caused by mental health issues.
People not getting treatment or seeking help. You know,
and they're still trying to mix and fuse and try to fix how our process works, because I don't 100% agree with how our process works, because a lot of times that works for us. If we find somebody calls, or somebody called about somebody else that may want to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else, if we go to them and we give them all the options that they could possibly seek help, and they decide no, they don't want to. If we see enough evidence there that they are possibly going to hurt themselves or somebody else, we have to take them into custody, which I don't like it. I think it's a very negative thing to do for somebody that's in a situation, to put handcuffs on somebody, technically arrest them, take them forcefully to treatment. Which
there's got to be a different way.
Yes, there is moments. I think it's helpful, but I think it's more detrimental. But I think the other side of that is, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead and finish your thought, man. I was just,
the other side of that is I dealt with a vet that had terminal ill years ago, that he was like bedridden, he couldn't walk, so he didn't have the opportunity or the capability to harm himself. But he spoke to me and said, "I'm going to hurt myself. This is my plan, this and that." So for my procedure and my policy, I technically had to take him to treatment. But the way I saw it is, this guy has no ability to do it. He has a want. Cool. He has no capability or opportunity to do it. Yeah. But for me not to get in trouble, I had to take him to the hospital. But luckily I got through it, and I almost picked him up, and I told him straight up, I was like, I'm not putting this guy in custody. He's going to stay in the hospital. He has no way to harm himself. But like, that sucked in my eyes. I'm thinking to myself, this guy lived a long life. He's not trying to hurt anybody else.
He wants to go, man.
I understand. Yeah, he's terminally ill. He can't move. Like, he's done. Like, it's hard to differentiate what we should get and what we should get involved in, what we shouldn't get involved in. I think we can't just have a standard thing. It needs to be case by case. But.
I mean, playing devil's advocate, that's kind of like Orwellian thought police. You know, just because you have the thought, you can be arrested for it.
Right.
You know.
So that was part of my Oh, sorry, Sap. Go ahead.
I'll just go real quick, and I just wanted to say that one of the biggest things that I've noticed, and a lot of people don't feel, is people that have some sort of influence, is to remind people when you see them like seeking help. There is no stigma behind that. If you seek help because you're having mental health issues or suicidal ideations or thoughts, that is one of the bravest things that you can do. So do it. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So going back to kind of like how you said, as far as like sending help and things like that, and so it's kind of ties in. It's a couple of different things, right? But I struggled with the whole being forced into training, right? Suicide training in the military, because the way that they propose this training is to watch for the signs and be able to recognize the signs and save somebody's life. Right. And coming from someone who saw signs and understood that there were signs from my mom. And I when I talked about that day, Christmas Day, on the way home, we were driving home that night. It was dark, I remember, and I called this suicide hotline. I don't remember what it was back then. But I called and I said, I think my mom may be, capable of trying to harm herself. And basically what they told me was an immediate family member, i.e. my brother or myself, an adult family member, immediate family member, would have to go petition the court, because they said, here's the thing, we can send a welfare check out to her house. But if she answers the door and says she's fine, there's nothing we can do about it. And my mom would have done that because, and I know that because my mom, she liked guns and stuff. We actually have pictures from that Christmas trip where she was shooting her new gun with Garrett out in the backyard and everything, and because she was excited about it.
I wish I can get that off Twitter.
And she, Facebook. It was Facebook back then.
Facebook.
But anyway, my grandfather had a problem with my little sister being at her house because he felt like my mom was a little bit unstable and whatnot. They lived 2 houses down from each other, and she was like, she made a funny comment about it. She was like, if I was gonna, I wouldn't shoot myself. I would get blood all over my hands, and she made a joke about it. And then less than a week later, here we are, right? But anyway, I called that hotline and they were like, we can send a welfare check, but if we don't see, like you said, if we don't see any visible signs or can prove that we feel like she's an actual harm to herself, there's nothing we can do about it. So one of us would have to go to court, express our concern, and then they could forcibly take her into a 72-hour hold, psych hold.
That's exactly how it works here.
Yeah, and hope that was, my brother and I both lived further away. By the time we did that, she was already gone. I mean, there's, so it was just really frustrating for me specifically. I can't speak for my brother, but it's very frustrating for me for us to see the signs, ask what our options were, and then her to do what she did, and then to go through like all this 5.5 years of training saying, recognize the signs, do the things, and you can stop it.
Well, you're in a different realm though,
Yeah.
It's not the military. It's like the military, we can pluck someone and say, oh, you're here now, I'm putting you here. But in your case, you couldn't do that, but you should be able to, I think.
That's what's hard.
You should be able to.
Both sides of it. I know that would be the same way I would treat that same situation. It's unfortunate, but people, you gotta understand that for somebody in my line of work, have the power to take somebody's constitutional rights away from them, i.e. taking them into custody. And for some reason, if we do that
off of just as somebody else's word, right?
Saying it, it sucks, but that's unfortunate. That's what we have. That's what we live in this country for. That's to have this constitution, but at the same time, it could be against us as well. But it sucks. But like Skep said before, you're lucky to see that you actually you saw the signs and knew what was going on. But for the most part, from what I've seen, if somebody wants to do it, is going to do it, they're going to do it, and they're going to know.
Yep, you're not going to be able to stop them.
And that's how I felt every time I sat in a training. Was I couldn't say that out loud, but that was what was going through my head. Was like I was in this situation, and there was like, even if we had prevented it that time, what about next time or the time? Like we could not live our lives perpetually watching
it's ongoing,
for her
yeah.
to do what she was going to do anyway.
We had a guy, it was what, 2018, somewhere in there. He was pretty new. He just, checked on the board our new command like within the last 30 days, chatting him up. He was an E7, so he was a senior enlisted guy. Seemed, he was kind of quiet, but I'm like, he's just new, everybody's trying to break the ice, get to know the guy. And everything seemed fine. No signs of any kind of distress or any kind of issue like that. One day he just didn't show up to work. And we're like, hey, where's this guy at? I'm not going to use names or anything like that. But, I go talk to our E9, our CMC, we call it. I was like, hey, man, this guy hasn't showed up. I don't know where he's at. I'm trying to call him. Nothing. Everybody's trying to call him, can't get a hold of him. Call his wife, can't get a hold of him either. He's gone. 3 days later, before I jump to that, we contacted the police. There was a bolo out for him. Eventually we found him. It was about 3 days later. He pulled off the road behind a berm, left a 9-page letter. Had gotten some like wine coolers or something and gotten drunk in his little pickup truck, started a weed whacker motor inside of it with all the windows up, passed out and killed himself that way. That was crazy because there wasn't signs of that. Everybody thought back to the conversations with him and stuff, and he just wasn't letting it on. Like he had planned this out. Like this was a plan of his probably for a little while, I think, for the most part. And, while I didn't get to read anything in this letter, the people that did basically said like, this has been something that he's been working on for a while. And he was adamant and no one was going to stop him. So he wasn't going to tell anyone, even if you asked him. Like, I think at some point in the letter he'd said that. Even if somebody would have asked me if I was going to do this, I would have told him no. Because this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
He stopped showing signs once he already had it planned out.
Yeah.
He probably was showing signs way ahead of time.
Yeah.
My mom tried to throw people off the trail. The only reason we knew was because we were close enough to her to know that she was not stable. But if anybody else had looked at her, she would have.
Yeah,
she'd have thrown you right off of it.
So really, let me jump in real quick, Tuna. Really, what it boils down to is, like we said before, if someone is going to do that, like and they're adamant, and it's not just I need help, then they're going to do it. And there's no matter the signs, there's nothing you can do about it. Try.
Yeah.
Whether they have a plan, what you were saying, Rebel, like there's so many different variables when it comes to suicide. You've got people that recognize the signs, you got people that'll try and throw off the signs and all that stuff. It literally just had a great friend of mine a few months ago, and that one was probably the most shocking suicide I've ever been through. Because I talked to the man 12 hours before he did it. And there were 0 signs. And I talked to him every day. And I'm not one because I can compartmentalize. With Ashley's family and all that stuff, they couldn't afford, a cleanup crew or anything like that. So one of our friends from high school, her boyfriend and I went over to the house and we cleaned it all up. And him and we have a whole different friendship because of that one night. And
they saw things that even I never saw.
Yeah, and things that I'll never explain, But this guy right here, this one affected me more than anything else because there was nothing. And, I've never openly grieved about my mother-in-law, and you can ask Ashley because I'm very level-headed. I keep my cool in situations, but on that one, Ashley and I, we have this thing where I will say, nope, I need time, and she'll corral the kids and all that stuff. I'll come literally out here and I will do my thing. And that, I think, is probably the first time I've openly been super upset about something, because you talk to somebody and then boom, it happens, and there's no signs, no recognition, no nothing. And that one just hit hard, very, very hard.
Yeah.
Like when that phone call came in from Ashley's grandmother, like to this day, and that was 12 years ago. Like, I regret handing the phone to Ashley when her grandmother called. I regret it, because we got a phone call an hour before saying, hey,
have you heard from your mom?
Have you heard from your mom? We're like, no. And they're like, we're on our way to go check on her. And the last thing that I said was, don't let her sister go in that house. Like, I knew, like I'd already known. I was like, do not let her sister go in that house. Well, sister got in the house and saw her and all that, but then we got the phone call, and I still kick myself in the ass to this day for letting Ashley do that, because I mean, my parents were up here, Piper, she answered the phone, she hit the ground, and then we're trying to pump her full of alcohol just to ease everything that Ashley was going through that day. And what Ashley felt that day is what I felt a few months ago. Not everybody will show any signs at all.
And it sucks too. Like all the calls have been, you talking about, like, and you as a family couldn't afford the cleanup and had to do it yourself. That sucks too, because that shit's expensive, and there's not like any public assistance for that or anything like that. People don't think about that. You got to clean up your own family member that's tragically lost their lives, but everybody thinks that I've heard multiple people to say before that the police would do that, or the police department does it, or something. No, we don't do that. So
they took her body. That was about it.
Yeah,
and that's not even the police department that does it.
No, it's public, it's
Corner,
private entities that do it.
Yeah, but it's crazy.
I actually thought about there for a while. It was actually because that stuff's never really bothered me. I thought about opening a crime scene cleanup business. Actually, lucrative.
So there's actually good.
Whatever it said. Yeah, I did a lot of research in it. So you make a lot of money doing it. And I've been through a lot of it. So I was like, well, I might as well just do it.
Y'all, I know pretty much all of y'all know Maggot Mikey, right?
Yeah. I think I've seen the name.
That's what he does for a living.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know Mikey did that.
I didn't know he did that either.
That's what he does.
Interesting.
Yep, biohazard cleanup.
Interesting. I did not.
Oh, he doesn't do it anymore? Okay. He did. I know he did.
Interesting.
But yeah, he did that because him and I have been sitting in Discord sometimes, and we would just sit there and talk about it.
Yeah, because there's a company, I forget, they have a YouTube channel I watch all the time, but there's a company that does like franchising that you can like pay a certain amount and they'll give you all the tools and stuff to start it. You start
okay.
Cool.
But I can imagine that taking a toll after a while, Merc, like for sure.
I kind of change the subject a little bit, but not really. If you ever get like blood on your shirt from your own blood, your saliva has the enzymes to break it. Yeah, to break it down to get rid of the stain. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey.
Good to know.
He had to get away from it because it took a toll.
Yeah, I would think so.
I can only imagine.
I have to.
It was just a random thought that I had to think like of another option if I wasn't going to be a cop.
Yeah. But my thing is everything has a grant. You know what I'm saying? Like when you have these people that do this type of stuff, like some people can't help if a crime scene happens at their house, but yet now they're responsible to pay for it. That's fucked up. It really is.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, crimes victims should. When I got shot, like I got all my hospital paid for and all that stuff from crimes victims, and in a sense, they're a crime victim. They should be able to get assistance with that as well.
Yep.
I wonder if it's just different because it's suicide. I don't know. I don't know how
it doesn't matter what it is.
Is it all the same?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
All scenes are the same. So, all right, Lenny, it's a little bit after, but with every guest that has a profession, I have to ask the hard question, and I hope Skep gave you the disclaimer that we ask the hard questions.
Sure.
I mean, after all of that, I mean, I don't think
There's no question that could be a harder.
This is directly directed toward your job.
All right.
So, top 5 things that, from your personal opinion, you would change about your career, that you wish you would see changed to make everything better.
Well, I've said a couple of them, but one for sure would be mental health funding. 2, I wish the overall demeanor or thought process, I guess, through multiple law enforcement officers would change. Like I said before about addicts or felons or whatever. I think officers need to think of that as people they need to think as offenders as people as well. Maybe need to have more compassion, I guess. And 3, I'd say I think law enforcement needs more funding in general, just for training and anything, just to get more people in the door, because everybody's working short-staffed, and that comes with its own difficulties and could be very unsafe. And it was 3. I need 2 more. Yep.
Defunding the police is fucking stupid. I'm just gonna say that. We need more fucking funding.
What else?
Jesus.
Number 4 is refer to number 3.
Yes.
Number 4. I don't know. It's free steaks every week, every day, funded by arrestees. That they're one of the punishments has to pay for our steak dinners. I don't know. Shit. I don't know. Yeah. Funding is a big thing. Funding can fix a lot. Yeah. Pretty much all 5 of my problems with funding is huge.
So number 4 and number 5 are refer to number 3.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So because you couldn't come up with 5, do you think that gun laws should be more restrictive or less restrictive?
Oh.
The way I've thought about it, from what I've seen, I think more gun laws aren't going to change anything. I think less restrictive. I mean, obviously the background check should always be there. Mm-hmm. I could see I do think in one aspect of being restrictive, I think there should be a mandatory safety class you should have to take for firearms. But laws in general, I think they need to be less restrictive, because 99% of the victims I've seen have been killed by firearms that have been stolen or illegally procured.
Yeah.
I think I can agree with you there.
Change anything, and if there's more laws in place.
Yeah. I mean, you have to take a class to drive a vehicle,
right?
So it's understandable,
right?
And it doesn't stop people from killing people with cars either.
Exactly.
Yeah, true. There's a lot of people get in automobile accidents and die.
Well, the only reason I asked that one question, because you couldn't come up with number 5, is my dad sent me an article today about gun laws, and the statistics behind it were saying that the states that had the more restrictive gun laws, their crime rate from, I think it was 2017, has gone up at least 22%, and the ones that have actually went more lenient on the gun laws have reduced on average 10 to 12%.
Do you feel like it's like the drugs argument? Like,
drugs for a deal?
Right. Do you think it's like that, and that's purely curiosity? I'm not swayed either way. That's I've
also thought about that aspect too, about the legalization of drugs. I've seen, like, for one, where I live, marijuana is technically legal for personal use.
Yeah,
but where I see crime that comes into the problems, the safety risks and stuff that are involved, is like the sale of the drug itself, or where the
usage of
negative things from the drug is the problem. I don't think the drug itself. There needs to be, legalization. I think can help, but I think it needs to be done differently in the aspect of like one, mental health comes into another aspect too with addiction. But I think just giving people every means to use the drug is not the best option, but legalization is an option for people that, like they talked about, if you're a lifelong offender because you're just using a drug, you're not hurting anybody, you're just using a drug, and you can't vote or do whatever, you lose your rights because you used a drug and you're now a felon or something like that. So I don't really agree with that, but it's a hard thing to fix. I'd say, but with people, like I said before, mental health I think is a huge advocate for fixing a lot of these problems that, especially like the homelessness thing out west, like that's all. This is like the homeless people I deal with every day. 90% of them are either alcoholic, drug addicts, or have mental health problems, or vice versa.
Or all, yeah.
And they go hand in hand.
I'm on the West Coast. I'll definitely love to get into that on another podcast,
I never dealt with homeless people until I moved here. So
yeah. Yep. Let's wrap this up, guys. This is like 3 hours, 10 minutes. Man, Lenny, brother, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Thank you for what you do too. Appreciate you being out there in a first responder.
Thanks for letting me come on.
Yeah,
fun.
I'm glad you
Can
did,
we talk
man.
about a small elephant in the room before we let Lenny go?
Let's do it.
What's that?
Has anybody thought in here, or has anybody ever told you that you look like Jamie Dornan?
Wait, can we pull up a picture of Jamie Dornan?
Yes, pull up a picture.
I told him he looked like Cody Garbrandt before we got on.
He just told me he's heard that before.
I mean, he's a handsome man. That's for damn sure. I'll say that.
When I've been shaved, I've heard he's the guy from Pearl Harbor, not Ben Affleck. The other guy.
No, Jamie Dornan is. Y'all know who the guy from? He's the guy from 50
Shades. You know who Jamie Dornan is, right?
He's 50 Shades.
Let's pull it up on the screen.
Is man. The main guy? The main guy from 50 Shades?
Yes.
Nobody's ever told you look like him?
No.
So there's a particular so he's mostly in most of the shows he's clean shaven, but there's like a small period of time where he's actually grown out some facial hair, and that's here we go.
Okay, hold on. Let me
I'm trying to think of the guy from Pearl Harbor, because I've got the guy from Pearl Harbor.
Images.
Are you talking about Josh Hartnett?
Josh Hartnett. I've got him before.
I mean, you kind of right there, bro.
Which one? See? Tell me he does not look like Jamie Dornan.
Bro.
I can see it.
I'd fuck you.
I mean, I'm not upset about it.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
I'd let you take me into the room.
This is who he looks like.
I waited all 3 hours to bring that up.
He looks like Cody Garbrandt too, for sure.
Definitely looks like Cody Garbrandt.
You're like a mix between the two, bro. You're definitely a handsome man. I'll tell you that.
I wish my traps looked like that shit.
Lenny, I'm gonna need you to DM me a fucking selfie, because we're gonna do a pic stitch of this.
You're welcome. If you didn't know, you're welcome.
Take the shirt off.
Man, ended on a good note. Let's go.
Well, Lenny, I appreciate the conversation. I was actually, whenever Skep said you were coming on, I was like, this is going to be awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I love talking about it, man. Like, people don't like, I love talking about what I do.
I'm glad we got to hear your perspective, bro. I really am.
Man.
Yeah, I honestly think, like, with the podcast that we've done, like, I think conversational wise, this was probably one of the deepest that we got into.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, we got into mental health and everything, man.
Yeah, we got into a lot of good subjects. We really did.
Yeah.
I appreciated having a kindred soul and the family members, and turning another way and trying to help them and all the things. Yeah. So it was nice to talk to somebody who's been through that.
I'm glad we could talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, love you, brother.
Hey, Skep,
all right.
See, I got
everybody.
Games.
Who's
I'll
be
on tomorrow night. I took off tomorrow because my dog's still sick.
Oh man, I hope he gets better.
He's got Addison's disease apparently.
Oh no.
Oof.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
that's terrible.
He's supposed to get an injection tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah. I know that they can dogs, even when they're diagnosed with that they can have some extended life from it too. You know.
Yeah.
So it's definitely treatable for sure.
Yeah.
So
Fingers
crossed, man.
Hasn't had any treatment yet, so
I hope everything goes well.
Well, good luck on that.
Yeah. See y'all.